We think of science as something which will always advance, that we will always become smarter. That's not exactly true. The easy discoveries were made long ago, maybe before Galileo. Then the hard discoveries were made, say, by the early 1900s. Now, the human race is working on really, really hard discoveries that most of us will never understand. Human knowledge increases every day, but the human brain stays the same size. Maybe we can put a cyborg chip implant in our brains, but it is still the chip, not the brain, that is doing the work. Our brains can only do what they do. If you put a chip in a brain, you're probably just going to damage the brain. Computers work just fine in their own boxes. Since our brains are strictly limited in capacity and performance to move science ahead as we think it must, we create computers and artificial intelligence to move learning forward. But with computers and artificial intelligence, it is not humans who are getting smarter. It is machines. Machines are doing the things we simply cannot do for ourselves, more so every day. We're desperate to ignore and deny this fact. The machines are taking over. The decade from 2010 to 2019 was the decade that artificial intelligence started to outperform humanity at a consumer level. GPS systems were telling us travel routes that were better than the ones we knew. Personal digital assistants were giving us answers to obscure questions. And of course, all kinds of computers and gadgets were calculating our living temperatures, affecting our elections, diagnosing our illnesses, selling us things on Amazon, and helping convict us for crimes. Non-human computational intelligence is already running much of our lives, and artificial intelligence is poised to take over and do things in ways we can't even comprehend. Science is about to leave us behind in a world where science does it for you. Science knows best, and you need to just shut up and do what science tells you. Mankind is improving technology, but technology is not improving us. It is trapping us in a way. With so much being done for us by technology, we are actually becoming lazy, dumb, and highly dependent on what that technology is doing. Studies have now shown that people who regularly use search engines, find answers to questions, actually lose some capacity for critical thinking because they're not mentally processing the questions for themselves. They become less able to reason their way through difficult challenges. While we may think that technology and science is making us smarter, it is actually making us dependent, lazy, and dumb. Do we learn from our cell phones? Not really. We don't have to remember anything, because if we forget, we just ask the phone again. We're letting parts of our brain go to sleep forever. Most of the technology we use does not teach us anything. It just provides convenience and makes us dependent. Brings us products, services, entertainment. Technology makes us able to communicate with screens and keypads. But for the most part, we aren't so interested in intellectual communication, just emotional and practical communication that helps us get through the day. Every time we get technology to do something for us, we get less able to do that for ourselves. The people who make technology are smart, at least in certain ways, but the people who use technology don't have to be smart at all. They are being assisted. Things are being done for them. That's the difference between intelligence and dependence. And we don't realize what that dependence costs us. Dependence means that we are forced to enter into a lot of commercial relationships. And every commercial transaction brings with it some expense, some amount of taxation, some margin of overhead. We have to enter some contract or accept someone else's terms. Every time we earn money, we are taxed. Every time we spend money, we are taxed. Every time we let technology do something for us, we are taxed. The only way we can improve our lives without paying for it and being taxed for it is if we do it for ourselves. That tax is more important than you know. There's a very well-kept, dirty secret about taxation that is right in front of you, but you are not supposed to see it. I will explain. Those obvious taxes, sales tax, income tax, property tax, and such, they're only a small part of the tax you pay. In everything you buy, you pay the taxes of everyone else who had a part in making that product or service you are buying, and whose taxes are incorporated in the price of the thing you are buying. One single loaf of bread can carry the taxes of perhaps hundreds of people. You blindly accept that you should pay $5 for that loaf of bread. You should pay 30 cents. The rest is just other people's taxes. And other people must pay your taxes in the goods or services that you produce. Our system of taxation forces us to pay each other's tax over and over again to the point where taxation is most of what you are paying for whenever you pay for anything. What looks like the price is mostly tax. And every tax, every markup is part of your time, labor, savings, your future disappearing. We do have incredible technology and automation. Things are incredibly inexpensive to produce. Things should be very inexpensive to buy. But taxation and overcharging has filled the gap. Most goods are spat out of machines for pennies, but in the store that item gets priced at $5, $10, or $20, and nearly all of that is tax and unnecessary markups. One reason we never noticed this is that as automation made things cheaper, they were able to sneak a lot of taxation in along the way. If we were used to paying $10 for something, why sell it for $1? Automation and technology has saved trillions of dollars, but someone else kept the difference. The pricing of goods is not based on the cost of manufacturing. It is based on how much people are willing to pay. If people are not educated in economics, technology, and manufacturing, they have no idea what to pay. Your school, your public education failed you terribly in this way, and that is what they wanted. You were educated to be a worker and a consumer, not a thinker. Most of us have never been educated in what it really costs to manufacture, transport, market, and retail the goods and services we consume every day. So we pay whatever we are told it costs. So how much of our earnings is wasted on unnecessary markups, taxation, and price inflation? You may have seen one of my previous videos on government accounting. The Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR, showed that less than a third of government revenues are returned to pay for public services. Government is taking in so much money, they don't know what to do with it. They hoard it. Why not? How would you know? They invest it. And that wealth, your wealth, now accounts for ownership of over 70% of the U.S. stock market. But you don't own it. That thing called government does. They are running secret space programs in the tens of trillions of dollars, according to leading economists who have conducted audits on large government agencies. How do we know that? Thank you, Catherine Austin Fitts and Mark Skidmore. So markups and taxes and the big gorilla printing of new currency to pay for interest on public debt, these things all cause inflation, reduce your buying power, and make it harder and harder for you to pay off debt, save, invest, and accrue assets and property. Harder every day. Every time you engage in a taxable event, every time you handle taxable currency, you are taken down on the financial scale. You are financially depleted to a state of permanent debt and servitude. Our dependence on science, technology, and taxable commerce is a shower of revenue for central bankers, government, and the larger corporations which are protected in their monopolies and subsidies. Our political system is carefully and deceptively structured to make one side think that government is the culprit, and the other side to think that corporations are the culprit. They are both right. All massive central institutions are the enemy. Their enemy is the individual, the independent and self-sufficient individual that does not need their technology, their products, their services, that wandering livestock that does not feed at the trough of centralized power. The system is designed to make you dependent on all kinds of technology and commerce that keeps you paying and paying and paying. This clearly explains why these days rich are getting so much richer and the rest of us are falling into debt. It is this system of invisibly compounded taxation, currency debasement, and overcharging whenever they can get away with it. Everything is rigged to keep you poor, to keep you working, and enrich those who centrally control the system and who produce nothing themselves. The financiers, the bureaucrats, the bankers, the elected officials. Or worse yet, they're producing weapons and new ways to spy on and enforce against the public. All of the laws, codes, and regulations are created to do exactly that to you, to force you into that system. That is why over 70% of us cannot even afford to buy a home. Over 70% of us will never be out of debt for our entire lives. Over 70% of us may never be able to retire because we are dependent, overtaxed, and dumbed down by our conveniences and daily streams of entertainment, which we now think are necessary to have a fulfilling life. Life is not so fulfilling when all of our opportunities to become independent, wealthy, and secure are systematically taken from us. But the more we do for ourselves, the more we own our own lives. The more we step outside the treadmill, the scam, the meat grinder, that rigged carnival that hustles us every time we turn around. When we solve our own problems, build our own worlds, and learn to do without some things, learn how to make and fix things we have and use, finding out what things should really cost, and what they do with our taxes, knowing how to live without having to engage in taxable commercial transactions, knowing that we do not have to live up to the Joneses next door, knowing how to get by in the severe economic times that may be coming, knowing how to solve complex problems without the help of high-tech gadgets, web services, and computer intelligence, to be prepared to use our own brains once in a while. Making sure that if we use technology, that the benefits it brings us are greater than the cost to us in privacy, freedom, security, and dependency. Maybe we will find that fulfilling life if we do things more people to people than people to screen. Maybe we can build community and rely on each other rather than relying on some sweatshop in China to give us what we need. We will probably never give up the convenience that science and technology bring us. We don't have to do that. But we would be wise to consider what we are losing in the current system and maybe do something about that. Do something about finding a better balance between technology and humanity, between globalist capitalism and community enterprise, between central authority and individual creativity. There's nothing wrong with making money. That's what government, corporations, and banks are doing. But when they do that, they're preventing you from doing it. Maybe we should not admire someone for using technology, but instead admire the person who uses their own wits, skills, and creativity and community to gain control of their lives. I'd like to give you a list of things that do not care if you live or die. Government, corporations, technology, science, computers, artificial intelligence, and your cell phone. If you have something in your life that does care if you live or die, that may be the most important thing you have.